Hey, just a quick off-the-cuff video today. The full set list for Animation Chronicle 2022 dropped today, and there are some outstanding new cards to talk about. It's good to see the Animation Chronicle series continuing after the first pack, since its sole focus is to provide anime and manga exclusive cards and OCG debut, which for us means that they are all but guaranteed a TCG release down the line. Now, I'm a huge fan of the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Series, probably no surprise, so I'm going to zero in on that. As is common practice, there's different groups separated within the set's numbering, so numbers 0 to 7 give us 7 all-new cards. The one reprint is this amazing-looking Prismatic Secret Rare, Blue Eyes in English, which I expect to be highly sought after in the US. Now let's introduce and critique the cards. First up is Royal Strait Slasher, one of Yugi's key cards from Season 5. With more recent support for the face card Knights Yugi has been using since Battle City, um, as for the effect, it's been translated fairly faithfully and can be used the same way Yugi used it in the show to send monsters level 1 through 5 to the graveyard to nuke your opponent's field. Though there are a couple limitations to this powerful effect, it's strictly once per turn and the face card Knights need to be in the graveyard. Though this does not affect its authenticity, so it's a good translation. It goes without saying that all cards that were created for the show had to be drawn or redrawn for the OCG because it's so stylistically different. That being said, this has been done to varying degrees of success. For example, something like Holding Arms is a one-to-one perfect upgrade. For Royal Strait Slasher, he's drawn in a new dynamic pose, but I found the best results are simply upgrading the composition that's already there in the existing card. Now the next card is Royal Strait, which is closely related since it's the card required to summon Royal Strait Slasher. With such a simple effect of tributing the face card Knights to summon Royal Strait Slasher, it's tough to mess that one up. If anything, the only change the OCG card makes is making it more generic in use, which is generally what Konami does when releasing support for older archetypes. Now it summons any cards that mention the three Knights, which if you're sticking with old school, that extends to Arcana Knight Joker, and has more usage now that there's support from King's Court. As for the artwork, this is what I'm talking about in terms of making a perfect translation from screen to card, exactly the same as before, just more details in color. Perfect. Next up is a card that has been on my most wanted list for years, that goes all the way back to Duelist Kingdom, Dragon Nails. Back then, card effects were simpler. It powers up a Dark Dragon by 600 points. The additional effect allows it to recycle itself and bring back a monster that was destroyed by battle while it was equipped. I thought this would have been at odds with how it was used in the show, but surprisingly this scenario would have never been triggered. Red Eyes was destroyed by Time Wizard's effect in its first appearance, and all other times the equipped monster was just never destroyed. I was about to nitpick that it had only the target of being a dark monster and not a dragon, and that made it too vague, but this is actually for the better for authenticity here. Joey used Dragon Nails on Red Eyes after it had been metallized into Red Eyes Black Metal Dragon, thus you can now perform the same move in real life. The only nitpick I do have is the artwork. Konami actually made an OCG quality artwork back in 2001. Unfortunately, the card never got made at the time, but the artwork did see use in Duelists of the Roses and the US 4Kids dub of the show. It's beyond me why they didn't use this artwork. I mean, it's still accurate and essentially the same composition, but just a little bit worse than the one before. Nothing really compares to the art of that original era. Next up is a huge surprise, Thunderball from Dungeon Dice Monsters. The artwork already just looks great and colorful, and there's plenty of leeway and authenticity since this monster is from a separate board game. In DDM, his manga effect is to pay Trap Crest to have him roll forward and just destroy everything in his path. This card has you discard a trap card to have him destroy all monsters in his column. And then has the secondary dice roll effect that has, well, it gives you a 1 in 6 chance of returning a card to your hand once it's destroyed. which seems like a pretty good approximation of the game piece, but my only issue is that messing around with columns is such a new concept to the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game that's at odds with a monster that was originally created in 1999. Continuing the theme with DDM, we get Dice Dungeon from Duke's Virtual World deck. This one had a vague effect originally, so there's a lot of room to fill in the blanks. To evolve a corresponding attack increases and decreases, they do line up with the results shown in the show, and the others seem accurate as well, just to round out the additional potential dice results. While the main effect is intact, they did make some changes to make it inaccurate. It now supports dimension dice by bringing it to your hand from the deck. Doesn't really change the show effect much, but it lacks the limitation of requiring a monster to be on your side of the field. This is how it was destroyed when Duke played it, so I consider this to be a bit of an oversight. The artwork shows the same angle of DDM board against a vortex background, but now it looks like the arena Duke used in the show. I'm pretty neutral on this change since it's inaccurate, but also creates another throwback in the process. Dimension dice was mentioned in the effect of Dice Dungeon, so there's no surprise that we get it here. In the show, it's an easy way to get Orgoth the Relentless out by tributing 2 of your existing monsters to special summon it. It's a bit odd that it was made more powerful, but also given restrictions that weren't there originally. It now summons any monster that requires a dice roll, making it more generic than it needs to be, but it has the restriction that you need a dice card on the field to begin with. Thankfully, this would have worked in the show since Duke controlled Dice Dungeon. Otherwise, it now requires 1 tribute instead of 2, which seems like an arbitrary decision. Still, the changes don't damage the authenticity too badly. In fact, I'd say the artwork compensates. They knocked it out of the park, showing Orgoth being summoned in Dice Dungeon. Finally, we have Clockwork Night from the same season and duel. You love to see cards like this get attention because they're key cards from more forgettable characters. This one's pretty simple in its purpose. All monsters become machine monsters, and the card's controller's machine monsters gain 500 attack, but the opponent's machine monsters lose 500 attack. Now, the real card has all that and a little bit more. The stat changes apply to defense as well, and when it's destroyed, you can banish it, discard a card, and add an Earth machine to your hand. This is a reference to and in support of Machine King, which Nesbit used, and extends to Perfect Machine King as well, since that's not a fusion monster in the TCG and can be affected. So as far as authenticity goes, I don't think there's too much more to say. I don't think changing the defense stats would have conflicted with the show, and all of the other effects are moot points since only 1 copy was played and it never got destroyed. Artwork was also perfectly translated, so all in all, an excellent addition to the set. Hope you enjoyed this more off-the-cuff video, but this was just some really good news that I wanted to talk about, and I hope to see them in the TCG real soon.